Hello, this is Pearl, and today I'm going to read Little Pilgrim's Progress, Chapter 15. Little Christian comes to the Palace Beautiful. The loss of his roll made poor little Christian very miserable. He forgot all about the lions in his trouble, and could think only of his carelessness in losing the most precious of the king's gifts. Suddenly he remembered the shady arbor in which he had spent the afternoon. Perhaps the roll might have fallen there, and when he started up so hurriedly, he might not have seen it. "Oh, how could I be so foolish?" he cried. "I ought only to have rested there, and I wasted so much time, and now it will be night before I reach the top of the hill." He turned around and went back slowly, looking carefully at the path, lest he might have dropped the roll on his way. At last he reached the arbor, and there upon the floor, just under the bench upon which he had been sitting, he saw his lost treasure. We may fancy how eagerly he caught it up, and how thankful he felt to the king for letting him find it again. But his search for the roll had hindered the little pilgrim, and although he climbed the steep path once more as quickly as he could, the sun had gone out of sight before he reached the top of the hill, and the light was fading very fast. "It is all my own fault," he thought. "If I had not been so idle, I should not have lost my roll, and I might have had time to find a place to rest in before the night." Then he remembered the lions, and he wondered how far he was from the spot where they lay. He knew that these savage beasts always prowl about in search of their prey during darkness, and as the shadows grew deeper and deeper around him, he felt more and more afraid. Just when the light had become very dim indeed, a large building appeared in the distance, and as Christian hurried along, he saw that it was a great palace, and that the way of the king would lead him close to its gates. A little cottage stood within the gates, which he supposed must be the doorkeeper's lodge, and he walked quickly toward it, hoping that he might be allowed to stay there for the night. The path now became very narrow indeed, and when he had almost reached the palace gates, Christian saw the two lions, which had so frightened Mistrust and Timorous, lying just before him, one on each side of the way. The lions were chained, but it was too dark for the chains to be seen, and little Christian stood still, wondering what he should do. There was only a very small space between the lions, and he thought that if he ventured to pass them, they would surely spring upon him. The name of the doorkeeper was Watchful, and he knew how much the pilgrims feared the lions, so he came very often to the door of his house to see if anyone was coming near. When he saw little Christian, he called to him, saying, "Don't be frightened. The lions are both chained. Keep in the middle of the path, and they will not hurt you." So Christian went on, trembling and very much afraid. But he was careful to keep in the middle of the path, and although the great creatures roared as he walked between them, they lay still and did not even stretch out their huge paws to touch him. When he had passed the lions, little Christian clapped his hands for joy, and ran quickly toward the kind doorkeeper who stood at the gates. "What place is this?" he asked. "It is called the Palace Beautiful," said Watchful, "and it belongs to the king. He built it for his pilgrims to use. Are you going to the Celestial City?" "Yes," answered little Christian. "I slept last night at the house of the interpreter. Do you think I may stay here until morning?" "How is it that you are traveling so late?" asked the porter. Then little Christian had to tell of his idleness in the afternoon, and how he had lost his roll, and had been obliged to go back and look for it. "Well," said Watchful, "I will call the lady of the house, and if you are one of the king's little pilgrims, she will take care of you." So they went together to the door of the palace, and the doorkeeper rang the bell.